When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my mother-in-law had a fever. She was clamoring for a thick quilt, saying, "It's only 38.6 degrees Celsius. I don't believe it can burn me to death. Going to the hospital is such a waste of money. This is just a common cold. Covering myself with a quilt to sweat it out will do. Don't listen to her nonsense. Son, go get me a few more thick quilts." Amid the noisy chatter in my ears, I opened my eyes and looked at the calendar on the wall. Could it be that I was reborn? Hearing my mother-in-law's words, I hurriedly rushed to the bedroom and took out 8 thick quilts. Looking at the nearly 40 degrees Celsius high temperature outside, I immediately closed the doors and windows and turned off the air conditioner. Then I carefully covered my mother-in-law with the quilts. "Mom, you're right. This is just a common cold. It's all my fault for talking nonsense. Look, are these quilts enough? If not, I'll go buy some more." My mother-in-law gave me a surprised look and then coldly scolded me. "No need. I'm already starting to sweat. You infertile woman, I'm telling you. If you don't give birth to a son soon, I'll make my son dump you." I stood aside and silently looked at her. Her forehead was constantly sweating profusely, and she seemed on the verge of death. When my mother-in-law coughed, my husband immediately showed his filial piety. He brought a cup of scalding hot water. "Mom, drink more hot water." I sneered. Watching my mother-in-law endure the heat and force a cup of hot water down her throat, I thought, how could someone be so stupid? With such a high fever, instead of finding a way to cool down quickly, they were adding more heat. In my previous life, my mother-in-law had a persistent high fever, and her internal organs were almost cooked. She still wanted to cover herself with thick quilts to sweat. I told her that it was heatstroke-induced heatstroke illness. If not treated in time, it could lead to organ failure in severe cases. But my mother-in-law pointed at my nose and cursed. "Hospitals are all about cheating money. You spendthrift woman just want to swindle my money." My stupid husband, hearing his mother say this, also joined in to refute me. "Xiaoxian, my mom just has a minor cold. Don't scare her." In the end, I insisted on calling for emergency help and temporarily cooled down my mother-in-law. Thanks to the timely delivery to the hospital, my mother-in-law's life was saved. However, I never expected that after my mother-in-law was discharged from the hospital, instead of being grateful to me, she blamed me for making her lose her coffin money. She and my husband attacked me from both sides, slapping me wildly at the hospital entrance. My mom was fine originally. "It's all your fault for insisting on sending her to the hospital. This was my coffin money. Now it's all gone. You bitch, you swindled my coffin money away." They even cursed me with serious illness, saying I deserved to die. I was beaten black and blue and on the verge of death, but they still wouldn't let me go. My husband even farted at me when I bent over to protect my head. I was almost suffocated to death. On the verge of my death, I could only feel my mother-in-law kicking me in the stomach one after another. After I died, they even threw my body into the pigsty. They watched with satisfaction as my body was gradually eaten up. Fortunately, heaven has eyes and gave me a chance to be reborn. This time I swear I won't meddle in any business at all. Not only that, but I also want to watch my mother-in-law's organs rot and fail one by one until she drops dead. The scenes of my previous life flashed through my mind one by one, and the hatred in my heart kept rising. But soon my mother-in-law's cursing voice pulled me back to reality. "Xiaoxian, my son is so hungry that his stomach is sticking to his back. Are you dead? Why don't you go cook? Remember to kill the rooster in the yard and make soup to nourish my son. He's lost weight recently." I clenched my fists, suppressing the anger in my heart, and nodded in agreement. With great effort, I caught the rooster. In the kitchen, my sister-in-law was using an electric stove to help me start the fire. Seeing me plucking the rooster's feathers, she was afraid I would be in a rush. She quickly came over to help me. "Sister-in-law, don't pay attention to my mom. She just likes to curse. I think you're the best in the whole family." Looking at the sister-in-law in front of me, my heart warmed up instantly. In my previous life, I was sold to the Yang family by my biological parents. Since I entered the family, her and her son had ordered me around, beating and scolding me. Only my sister-in-law Yang Li showed concern for me. She helped me cook and wash dishes every day. After I died, only she secretly burned paper for me and cried, saying she missed me. Unfortunately, not long after, my mother-in-law sold Yang Li to a 70-year-old lame man to get the betrothal gift, and she was tortured so much that she wished she were dead. Thinking of this, I looked at Yang Li with a pained expression and then turned off the electric stove, starting the fire directly on the stove. The fire burned brighter and brighter. The stove in the kitchen was connected to the Kong in my mother-in-law's room. Once the fire started here, the Kong over there would immediately get hot. Seeing this, Yang Li looked at me with some confusion. "Sister-in-law, didn't Mom say we should use the electric stove to cook? The stove is only used in winter. Using the electric stove consumes a lot of electricity. Using the stove saves money and can also save an expense for the family." After hearing my opinion, my sister-in-law nodded repeatedly. I smiled and casually added another handful of firewood to the stove. On this sweltering day, my mother-in-law was sweating all over, covered with several layers of quilts, and now with the hot fire baking her, it would surely make her comfortable to death. Sure enough, not long after the fire started, a pig-like scream came from that side. Damn it! Why is the Kong getting hotter and hotter? Son, come quickly. I can't breathe. My mother-in-law's voice gradually weakened. When Yang Lin ran over, I quickly followed, afraid of missing the fun. As soon as I entered the room, I saw my mother-in-law sweating all over, struggling naked out of the quilt. As soon as she saw Yang Lin appear, she looked extremely aggrieved and plunged into his arms. I was already used to this. Since I got married, my mother-in-law had been much more dependent on Yang Lin than on me. She never knocked when entering the room. She asked her son to scrub her back when taking a bath and asked him to help dry her body after the bath. Even when she had a nightmare while sleeping, she would run over in the middle of the night and ask Yang Lin to hold her and coax her to sleep. It was already abnormally perverted. I felt slightly discontented about this. She would then complain to her son. Just like now, she was pointing at me and whining to Yang Lin. On such a sweltering day, she actually made my Kong so hot. This person wants to harm us. Yang Lin's eyes landed on me, full of malice. I quickly explained, Mom, I did this for your own good. You have a cold. Only by sweating more can you recover quickly. I thought if I made the fire burn more vigorously, and your body got warmer, you could sweat more, and then your cold would get better faster. Otherwise, if it gets serious and we have to go to the hospital, won't it cost a lot of money? At the mention of spending money, the expressions of the mother-son duo changed instantly. Yang Lin nodded in agreement and turned around to comfort his mother. Mom, Chow Xine meant well. Don't blame her. Hurry up and put on your clothes. Don't catch a cold. As she put on her clothes, my mother-in-law wiped her forehead with her hand and said joyfully, Son, I don't seem to be as hot as before. It's good that you're not feverish anymore. It shows that you're in good health. Yang Lin replied perfunctorily and then started playing games on his phone. Good health? This was clearly a sign of the fever reaching its peak. What idiots! I smiled sweetly and stepped forward to hand a thick coat to my mother-in-law. Mom, to prevent the fever from recurring, you'd better put on more clothes. I heard that in the Dongxiang area someone is moving and there are brand new furniture thrown everywhere. But it's too hot now, and no one has picked them up yet. My mother-in-law's greatest pleasure on ordinary days was scavenging. As long as something was unwanted by others but seemed useful, she would pick it up, take it home, wash it, and continue using it. This included but was not limited to clothes, shoes, unfinished drinks, and uneaten leftovers. In her words, these were gifts from heaven. As long as they were free, they were good things. Sure enough, upon hearing my words, my mother-in-law was immediately tempted. But just as she reached the door, she suddenly remembered that the furniture was too big for her to carry alone. So she turned her gaze to her son. Seeing that Yang Lin was playing games, she smacked her lips in the end and didn't call him. Then she turned her gaze to me. I immediately became alert and walked towards the kitchen, muttering as I went, I seem to have forgotten to stew the chicken. This is for my husband to nourish his body. I must watch over it. My mother-in-law sighed and left the courtyard alone, carrying a thick rope. Standing at the kitchen window, I watched my mother-in-law staggering unsteadily. My heart suddenly brightened. It seemed that after this zhurteng, her condition had indeed worsened a lot. Mother-in-law, this is all your own doing. My mother-in-law went out and didn't come back until evening. Yang Lin was sitting on the Kong, playing games and drinking the fragrant chicken soup. My sister-in-law and I stood aside, looking on eagerly, but could only gnaw on the stale buns. After finishing a game, Yang Lin touched his chubby belly. When he got off the Kong to go to the toilet, he remembered his mother and quickly looked at me. Xiao Xian, how long has Mom been out? It's so late. Why hasn't she come back yet? I pretended to frown with concern and said, Yes, Mom has been out for a whole day. Is the furniture too big for her to carry alone? How about we go out and look for her? As soon as I finished speaking, a person rushed in anxiously at the door. It was Zhang Daqiang, the son of the village head. As soon as Zhang Daqiang saw Yang Lin, he became flustered and stammered to tell him, Your mother was trying to carry the furniture back but she fainted halfway. Yang Lin rushed out in a hurry after hearing half of it. I followed closely behind. Seeing Yang Li also about to go out, I quietly pressed her down and pointed to the kitchen. It's too dark outside. You'd better not go. I secretly saved a bowl of chicken soup for you. Go and drink it. By the time Yang Lin and I ran over, my mother-in-law was lying on her back on the ground. Her forehead was hot again and she was sweating. Even the cotton-padded clothes on her body were soaked. The two of us finally managed to carry her home. After blowing the fan for a while, my mother-in-law's consciousness gradually became clearer. But the first thing she did when she woke up was to ask Yang Lin to turn off the fan. It's too wasteful of electricity. Mom will save the money for you. That's more important than anything. By the way, where's the furniture I brought back? Yang Lin couldn't help but retort. You're in this state. Who has the time to care about that broken furniture? Mom, why don't we go to the hospital tomorrow? Don't let anything serious happen. Yang Lin's words were cut off halfway by his mother's furious scolding. Go to the hospital? That's a place that eats people without spitting out bones. Are you crazy? Going there means spending money. Mom still wants to save money for you. Besides, I'm in good health. It's nothing serious. Sweating it out will do. After my mother-in-law finished speaking, She covered herself with the quilt even more tightly. Seeing my mother-in-law like this, Yang Lin turned around and went to the kitchen, offering the last big chicken leg he had left. "Mom, eat some chicken to nourish your body." My mother-in-law beamed with joy when she saw this but insisted not to eat it. She squinted her eyes and kept praising her son. "Mom doesn't want it, son. You keep it for yourself. You need to nourish your body. Mom doesn't like this stuff. By the way, where's the Huxiangjingqi shui I picked up last time? That seems to be Zhanzhigan Mall. Bring it to me. I'll go get it." Before Yang Lin could react, I had already run out. There were 3 bottles of Huxiangjingqi shui in total. My mother-in-law picked them up at the entrance of the village last year, and usually didn't want to use them. She treasured them like treasures and hid them in the cabinet. When I took them out, I saw that they had expired for a long time. Watching my mother-in-law pour the 3 bottles of expired Huxiangjingqi shui into her mouth all at once, I was overjoyed in my heart. My mother-in-law had severe yang heat stroke. At this time, the most important thing to do was to cool down and ventilate. But my mother-in-law insisted on closing the doors and windows and covering herself with a quilt to sweat, resulting in a large loss of body fluids that couldn't be replenished. Her body temperature rose rapidly, and she had abnormal night sweats. Her symptoms were already quite serious, and Huxiangjingqi shui contained a large amount of alcohol. Even if it was expired, drinking it would only make things worse and make her die faster. Sure enough, not long after drinking, my mother-in-law turned pale, complaining of dizziness and nausea. She sweated more and more and soon vomited. She vomited for a full hour. After vomiting, my mother-in-law covered herself with the quilt and fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, she suddenly shouted excitedly, "Yang Lin, son, I'm okay." Yang Lin rushed over in a hurry and saw his mother sitting on the bed, dressed, with a bit of redness on her face. The sweat on her body had stopped, and she looked refreshed. She happily hugged me and spun around. "Xiao Xian, I told you Mom is in good health and nothing will happen. See? Yes. Mom is really in good health." I echoed, but in my heart I thought it was ridiculous. What a stupid pig. This was not good health at all. It was clearly the last glimmer of life before death. With a high fever but dry and sweat-free skin and unclear consciousness, these were severe manifestations of heat stroke. Looking at my mother-in-law's symptoms, I'm afraid her internal organs were almost cooked by now. I fixed my eyes on my mother-in-law. She was muttering something softly, raising her hand and desperately trying to put her woolen trousers on her head. It seemed that her consciousness was already seriously unclear. But Yang Lin only cared that his mother seemed okay. Seeing that she was fine, he pulled me and left. Before leaving, I silently closed the door of my mother-in-law's room tightly to make the room even more stuffy. With a smile on my face, my fingers unconsciously tapped out a rhythm as I silently calculated the last time. Early the next morning when I got up to cook, I saw that my mother-in-law's door was still locked. When I passed by the door crack, I could faintly smell a fishy and stinky smell. I pushed Yang Lin, who was still sound asleep, and said with a worried voice, "Honey, it's already 9 o'clock. Why hasn't Mom gotten up yet? She usually gets up at 6 o'clock on the dot. Could something be wrong?" Yang Lin had been playing games until the early morning last night and had just fallen asleep not long ago. He was extremely sleepy now and didn't pay attention to my words at all. "Oh, are you annoying? If Mom wants to sleep, let her sleep more. Why do you have to make her get up? It's probably because of the cold. Leave it alone. Go cook." He scratched his ear impatiently, turned over and continued to sleep. I pouted and turned around to enter the kitchen. Most of the furniture in the kitchen was picked up by my mother-in-law outside. They were used by others and I was too lazy to clean them, so they were all dirty and covered with dust. Only that window I cleaned every day so it looked bright and clear. Every time I cut vegetables by the window, I could always see the rhododendron tree in the yard through the window. When the wind blew, the red flowers fluttered and fell, looking bright and beautiful. I deliberately put on the clothes I usually didn't want to wear, cooked with newly fried lard and steamed a large pot of rice. There were 4 dishes and 1 soup, which was very sumptuous. It was already late in the morning when Yang Lin lazily got out of bed. By the time he washed his face, I had already thoughtfully served the food on the table. Looking at the sumptuous breakfast in front of him, Yang Lin's eyes lit up. So many delicious dishes. I can eat 3 big bowls. I nodded with a smile and handed him the filled rice bowl. Then eat more. After I finished speaking, I also sat down and started eating on my own. When we were halfway through the meal, Yang Lin suddenly slapped his thigh and remembered his old mother. Why hasn't Mom gotten up yet? Could something have happened? Yang Lin burped and said as he put on his shoes and ran towards his mother's room. I also rushed after him. Yang Lin knocked on the door. Seeing no one answering, he simply kicked the door open. The room was very dark. My mother-in-law was lying on the bed, her eyes slightly closed. Even though she was covered with 8 layers of thick quilts, she was still shivering all over and her body was extremely cold. Getting a little closer, one could even smell a faint fishy and stinky smell. When she saw Yang Lin, my mother-in-law's painful expression eased a lot. She grabbed Yang Lin's hand and said tremblingly, "Son, Mom is in so much pain. Why don't you take Mom to the hospital? Just this once, spend the money." "Mom, I'll take you to the hospital." Yang Lin cried like a tearful person. Clearly, he was panicked. The mother-son pair looked very touching. Standing aside, I was shocked by my mother-in-law's gaunt face. In just one night, my mother-in-law seemed like a completely different person. Her hair was messy, her face was haggard, the bones on both sides were sunken, her glabella was yellowish-black, and there were many small purple-black spots on her face. My mother-in-law raised her hand to scratch those spots, shouting that it was itchy and asking her son to go and boil some hot water for her to take a bath. Yang Lin wiped the tears on his face with his hand and became a little angry. What bath are you still taking at this time? No one thinks you're dirty. Although he said he didn't mind, when Yang Lin picked up his mother and ran outside, he clearly held his breath. He casually picked up a wooden stool and threw it at me, saying in a hurry, "Are you dead? Mom is in this state. Why don't you hurry up and borrow a car?" I turned my head to avoid the wooden stool and replied casually, "Okay." Then I walked out leisurely. Before leaving, I could still hear Yang Lin talking to himself. What on earth is that smell on her body? It's so strong. I grinned and chuckled softly. Besides the smell of a corpse, what other smell could be so intense? The old woman was having her last glimmer of life. Even if she was really taken to the hospital, she definitely wouldn't come back. I gloated and went out. It took me almost half an hour to mluthing to the village head's house. The village head had a van but was reluctant to lend it. In the end, I could only borrow the donkey cart that the village head used to pull wood. By the time Yang Lin and I took my mother-in-law to the hospital, she was already on her last breath. My mother-in-law was pushed into the emergency room. I stood at the door waiting anxiously while Yang Lin calmly sat on the chair, playing games with his head down. Before he could finish a game, news came from the doctor. My mother-in-law, due to heavy physical labor and being in a high temperature and enclosed space for a long time, had a rapid drop in heart rate due to excessive sweating. At the same time, she had acute renal failure, liver failure, disseminated intravascular coagulation, and multiple organ failure. In the end, the rescue was ineffective. Regarding what the doctor said, Yang Lin was so immersed in the game that he barely listened. It was not until the game ended and the doctor handed him the death notice that Yang Lin realized the seriousness of the problem. He angrily tore up the notice and the medical record in his hand, then rushed towards the doctor like a madman, grabbing the doctor's neck and accusing him harshly. "What did you say? You killed my mother. You quack. I'll sue you. My mother just had a common cold and you actually killed her. What kind of angel in white are you? This is premeditated murder. I'll beat you to death to avenge my mother." The more Yang Lin spoke, the more excited he became. The doctor frowned and patiently explained to him, "Your mother died of heat stroke, not a common cold. This disease is very dangerous, and you brought her here too late. You're talking nonsense." Before the doctor could finish, Yang Lin swung his fist and hit him hard. "It's your incompetence that killed my mother. I won't let you go. This hospital, I'll make all of you pay with your lives. Otherwise, pay me 1 million yuan, not a penny less, or I'll never forgive you." After saying this, Yang Lin sat cross-legged in the hospital lobby like a rogue, showing no intention of leaving. Now everyone understood that he wanted to create a disturbance in the hospital to extort money. He wasn't really grieving for his mother's death. Yang Lin made a huge ruckus in the hospital for a long time. He originally wanted to extort money, but unexpectedly, the hospital called the police directly. After the police came to understand the situation, they took the injured doctor and Yang Lin back to the police station to take statements. Yang Lin, for deliberately injuring others, would have to stay in detention for at least a while. When being arrested, Yang Lin resisted desperately and loudly defended himself. "Why are you arresting me? They killed my mother. Do you know how to be a policeman? You should arrest these unscrupulous doctors. Why are you arresting me? My wife can testify for me. I'm the victim. If you don't believe me, go and see. My mother is still lying in there." Yang Lin shouted until his voice was hoarse, but no one at the scene paid any attention to him. Helplessly, Yang Lin could only turn his eyes to the onlooking crowd and shout in a panic, Xiao Xen, come and help me quickly." I hid at the back of the crowd, quietly taking everything in. The moment my eyes met Yang Lin's, I shook my head at him gloatingly and then left nonchalantly. He was daydreaming. I wished he would go down and reunite with that old woman sooner. By the time I got home, it was already late. The food on the table had already gone cold. Yang Li was sitting at the door, her stomach growling nonstop. As soon as she saw me, she happily hugged me. "Sister-in-law, you're finally back." I told her that my mother-in-law didn't make it and had died, and Yang Lin had also been taken away by the police. There was no expression on Yang Li's face. She just softly said, and then hugged me and coquettishly said, "Sister-in-law, I'm so hungry." So I cooked a big sumptuous dinner again. This meal used up almost half of the stock in the kitchen. Even 3 of the old hens that my mother-in-law had reserved to nourish her son's body were caught by me and made into soup. I sat at the dining table with Yang Li, and ate up all the chicken and food bite by bite until our stomachs were full. This should be the fullest meal that Yang Li and I have had in all these years. After Yang Li fell asleep, it suddenly started to rain outside. I stood at the window, silently looking at the rhododendron tree in the yard, but my heart was filled with mixed feelings. The soil under the rhododendron tree was soaked by the rain, and the soil was loose. It seemed that there was some hidden, unspeakable secret beneath. So I carried a hoe and in the heavy rain, came to the tree and started digging bit by bit. When I was halfway through digging, the hoe in my hand seemed to encounter resistance and couldn't move. Thunder rumbled, and a bolt of lightning split the sky. By the light of the lightning, I saw what was underneath. It was a human bone. I was so scared that I fell to the ground, but soon I realized something. I threw away the hoe and squatted on the ground, digging desperately with my hands. At this moment there was a knock on the door, and my heart tightened. Who could it be at this late hour? I got up and walked little by little towards the gate. Just as I was about to look through the crack of the door to see who was outside, I heard Yang Lin's irritable voice. "Xiao Xian, hurry up and open the door for me." Bang, bang, bang. Wasn't Yang Lin in detention? Why did he come back suddenly? Just as I was thinking, there was another sound of Yang Lin kicking the door outside. Chow Exine, you bitch. If you don't open the door, I'll kill you. The knocking on the door continued. I quickly cleaned up the yard and then ran to open the door in a fluster. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Yang Lin with a gloomy face. Why did it take you so long to open the door? I didn't answer but asked instead. Why are you back? Don't mention it. Yang Lin sighed and ruffled his messy hair like a bird's nest, pushing me aside and walking inside. I'm so unlucky. Not only did my mother die, but in the end I didn't get a single cent. I'm so frustrated. As Yang Lin spoke, he spat on the ground in disgust. He urged me. I'm starving. Go cook me a bowl of noodles. I suppressed the doubts and resentment in my heart, nodded and walked towards the kitchen. When entering the house, Yang Lin's eyes passed over the rhododendron tree outside the yard, and then he called out to me, Chow Exan, what were you doing in the yard just now? Nothing. I wanted to shovel some soil and mud to patch the stove, but it rained halfway. However, I always feel that the feng shui of that rhododendron tree is not good. How about we pull it out another day? As I spoke, I looked up to see Yang Lin's reaction. Sure enough, he looked guilty. He frowned and was obviously in a hurry. What's so unlucky about a good tree? All right. Hurry up and go make the noodles. I'm still hungry. I have to go to the hospital tomorrow to bring my mother's body back. There are so many things to do. After saying this, Yang Lin went into the inner room on his own to change clothes. I also turned around and entered the kitchen. Early the next morning, Yang Lin hired a van early and urged me to go to the hospital with him. After yesterday's commotion, the people in the hospital had a bad impression of Yang Lin. After my mother-in-law's body was brought out, Yang Lin urged me to go home quickly. I covered my stomach and looked in pain. I seem to have eaten something bad yesterday. I want to go to the toilet. You're like a lazy donkey. As soon as it's time to work, you have to shit and piss. Hurry up. Mom is waiting to be buried. Okay. I nodded and covered my stomach, quickly running into the hospital. But I didn't go in the direction of the toilet. Instead, I found a new little nurse and asked about Yang Lin. Only then did I find out that after Yang Lin was taken away by the police, the hospital and the beaten doctor both wanted to sue him. Yang Lin had no choice but to kneel on the ground, play the victim kowtow hard, and say that he didn't understand the law. He just thought that without his old mother he couldn't live either. That night, he even staged a scene of trying to commit suicide at the police station. The hospital saw that he was pitiful and had just lost his mother, and his attitude of admitting his mistake was sincere, so they decided to let him go. The beaten doctor also considered himself unlucky. Fortunately, it was only a minor injury, so he didn't pursue the matter any further. After the little nurse finished speaking, she couldn't help but smack her lips. Someone as thick-skinned and rogue as him, if you really get involved with him, that would be really bad luck. Our hospital doesn't want to cause trouble either. When my mother-in-law's body was transported home, Yang Lin bought a cheap coffin by the way. As soon as he got home and hadn't even had time to catch his breath, he urged me again. You hurry up and cook. Mom's funeral is a big deal. We have to hold a grand one and invite everyone in the village. After saying this, Yang Lin took a pack of cigarettes and went to discuss my mother-in-law's funeral with the village head. Yang Lin wanted to hold a continuous banquet for my mother-in-law in the village and spread the word to everyone in the village, asking them to come for sure. Standing in the kitchen according to his request, I cooked a large pot of food with Yang Li, filled the plates, and placed them on the banquet table one by one. Then I sat in the yard with Yang Lin, waiting for the villagers to come. But we waited for 2 or 3 hours, and no one in the village gave Yang Lin face. Yang Lin smoked several cigarettes in a row, breathing heavily in anger. He simply kicked over the banquet table and cursed towards the entrance of the village. Damn it! These bastards! We've lived together for so many years, but not a single one of them is willing to come. They have no human feelings at all. Yang Lin's words were full of swear words. He shouted at the top of his voice, scolding the villagers for being heartless and having no conscience. I sat aside, listening silently, but in my heart, I had already expected this result. After all, the villagers were not stupid. Yang Lin and his mother were usually very stingy. Not to mention inviting everyone to dinner, they wouldn't even part with a single scallion. They had always been the ones to take advantage of others. And this time they were unexpectedly holding a happy event for his mother, which was clearly an attempt to collect everyone's gift money. You had to pay after eating, so naturally no one was willing to come to this meal. I thought no one would come, so I got up and started cleaning up. Unexpectedly, one person still came. The village head stood at the gate, looking at the crooked tables and chairs in the yard, with food spilled all over the ground by Yang Lin in his outburst, leaving no place to step. So he simply stood at the gate. When Yang Lin saw the village head, he immediately restrained his anger and greeted the village head with a big smile. Village head, I knew you would definitely come. Come in and take a seat. I'll ask Chow Exine to serve you the food. The village head waved his hands repeatedly. No need, no need. I had just finished my meal. I'm really grieved to hear about your mother's passing. I came here to offer my condolences and tell you not to be overly sad. Oh right. You left your cigarettes at my place yesterday. I brought them back to you by the way. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll be off. There are still some things to attend to at home. After the village head returned the pack of cigarettes that Yang Lin had taken there yesterday, he turned and left. Glaring at the village head's receding figure, Yang Lin spat on the ground viciously. Damn it! A bunch of scoundrels. Not a single one of them is any good. I can manage without you all. Yang Li stood aside, tugging at the corner of her clothes and asking, Brother Yang Lin, didn't you still want that piece of land from the village head's family to bury Mom's grave? What shall we do now? Where should we bury Mom? Bury her on my face. Yang Lin shoved Yang Li aside, his face gloomy. That old hag didn't leave a single cent when she died and even made me lose a fortune. What the hell is there to bury? Just throw her in the back mountain. That day, Yang Lin wrapped his mother's body in a straw mat and threw it in the back mountain without even kowtowing. When Yang Lin came back, his face was extremely dark. He kicked everything he saw. Finally, his gloomy gaze landed on Yang Li. His mind raced and he suddenly laughed. Yang Li, you seem to have developed quite well. Yang Li quickly hid behind me. I immediately pushed her outside the door and said, your brother is in a bad mood. I'll stay with him for a while. You go out and play. Don't come back for now. After Yang Li left, Yang Lin slapped me in the face, his tone harsh. You slut. Why did you ruin my good deed? I covered my face, my fist almost crushing, but still held back and put on a smiling face. Honey, I know you're in a bad mood. That girl can't speak properly. Her presence here will only make you unhappy. So I bought you 2 bottles of wine, hoping to cheer you up. After hearing my words, half of the anger on Yang Lin's face dissipated. He pinched my face hard, seemingly a bit touched. Xiao Exine, you're the one who's good to me. Those bastards in the village are really heartless. I put my arm around Yang Lin's and helped him into the house, pouring him wine while smiling and replying, you're my husband. Of course I have to be good to you. Honey, you drink first. I'll cook you a couple more side dishes. Then I turned and entered the kitchen. I put the freshly stir-fried dishes on a plate. My gaze passed through the window and landed exactly on the rhododendron tree in the yard. The rhododendrons were in full bloom, even more enchanting in the gentle breeze, as red as blood. By the time I brought the dishes out, Yang Lin had already drunk most of a bottle of wine. He put a piece of scrambled egg into his mouth and pointed to the bottle of wine with a rosy color, asking me, what kind of wine did you buy? It tastes a bit strange. I kept putting dishes into his bowl attentively and replied in a low voice, this is wine brewed with roses. I heard it's good for the kidneys and can soothe the mood. So many things have happened in our family recently. I want you to be in a good mood. Besides, the house is too quiet. I also want to give birth to a son for you soon. Hearing this, the smile on Yang Lin's face grew even wider. He directly picked up the bottle and gulped down the remaining wine. Then I must drink more. You really know how to do things right. I accompanied him with a smile and quickly opened another bottle for him, pouring the wine and putting the hot dishes into his bowl. Due to being in high spirits and not having eaten much for several days, Yang Lin quickly finished the dishes on the table with a few mouthfuls. And those bottles of wine were no problem for him either. After having enough to eat and drink, Yang Lin let out a loud burp and pounced on me lecherously. Xiao Exine, you must serve me well today. Don't worry. I'll definitely make you comfortable. I sneered and quickly dodged him. Yang Lin missed and almost fell to the ground. Instantly, he became furious and raised his hand to point at me, ready to curse. But after only a couple of words, he felt something was wrong. His body went limp, and he fell to the ground. Thoijurlai was a fit of Feng Kong O Tu. After vomiting, Yang Lin shouted that he wanted to go to the toilet. But before he took 2 steps, he quickly fell to the ground again, soiling his pants with excrement. Yang Lin realized something was wrong, covered his stomach and looked up at me, his eyes full of an incredulous look. Xiao Exine, you bitch. What did you put in the food, Croton? I covered my nose and stepped back outside the door in disgust, enduring the stench and telling him the truth. Croton is too kind. For a scumbag like you, of course I use something more ruthless. I pointed to the rhododendron tree in the yard and told him, I know that rhododendrons are poisonous, so I added a lethal amount of rhododendron pollen to the food. Not only that, those bottles of rose wine. In fact, the raw material wasn't roses at all, but rhododendrons. It's wine brewed from rhododendron flowers. You drank a full 5 big bottles. How could it be? Xiao Exine, you wouldn't do this to me. Hurry up and take me to the hospital. Yang Lin's face changed several times. While vomiting bile, he crawled to my feet, begging me to take him to the hospital. But I kicked him aside in disgust. I picked up a hoe and ran straight to the rhododendron tree, digging frantically. Due to the recent rain, the soil was much softer. So I quickly dug out a pile of white bones inside. I trembled and pieced together those bones one by one. It was the skeleton of a baby. I pointed to the pile of bones and said, Yang Lin, do you remember him? Yang Lin's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Sweat poured from his forehead, and he shook his head desperately. It wasn't me. It was all Mom's idea. When you gave birth to Xiaohua, Mom saw that it was a girl, so she fed it sleeping pills and lied to you that the child had died. It was also Mom who told me to bury it alive under the tree. Mom said that burying a baby girl alive would prevent her from coming back in the next life. I couldn't listen anymore. I knelt on the ground trembling, holding some of the bones in my hands. Helplessness, grief, fear and excruciating pain surged through me continuously. So this was how my child died. Yang Lin suddenly covered his stomach and rolled on the ground wildly. He waved to me. Xiao Exine, save me. I stared at him hatefully, then rushed into the house, rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, and took out all the sleeping pills in the house, stuffing them all into his mouth. You're a beast. Even if you pay with your life for my daughter, I won't let you die easily. Yang Li suddenly pushed the door open. When she saw this scene, her expression was very calm. It was not until Yang Lin crawled towards Yang Li, crying for help, that there was a glimmer of expression on Yang Li's face. She gently curved her lips and smiled. Brother, I'll tell you one more thing before you die. In fact, both sister-in-law and I were reborn. In the last life after Xiaohua died, I helped you and Mom hide it from Sister, but I never expected that you would sell me to an old man to dispel bad luck. In this life I want to help sister-in-law take revenge together and make sure you and Mom don't die a good death. After hearing this, Yang Lin's face turned red. He raised his hand, wanting to hit Yang Li, but at the moment of raising his hand, he suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood and finally fell to the ground, his eyes blood-red, dying with his eyes wide open. Yang Li and I together threw Yang Lin's body into the cellar of the vegetable garden. There were several venomous snakes coiled inside, spitting their forked tongues wildly at the smell of blood. He had been poisoned, and the rescue time had long passed. His death was inevitable. He could only turn into a pile of rotten bones in this dark cellar. Now that he had also offended everyone in the village, presumably no one would come to see him. I found a place with beautiful scenery and buried Xiaohua's bones. Yang Li knelt in front of me, crying with tears all over her face. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. In the last life I shouldn't have helped them hide it from you. When I found out about this, Xiaohua had already died. I was also afraid that you would be sad if you knew. I shook my head and reached out to wipe the tears from Yang Li's face. It's not your fault. In this second life, my only wish is to avenge my daughter. She was just a baby. She shouldn't have died so miserably. In the previous life I was deceived by them. I was still thinking kindly for my mother-in-law, but I didn't expect them to bite the hand that fed them, causing both me and my daughter to die a tragic death. In this life every step I took was extremely heavy. Now that my great revenge has been avenged, my heart is still filled with deep sorrow. I only hope that in the next life, my daughter can live a happy life. Anyway, life has to go on. A gentle breeze blew through the forest. Yang Li and I left this village together. In the car, Yang Li was sound asleep, hugging my arm. A ray of sunlight shone through the car window onto her face, making it look rosy like a red apple, very cute. I stared at this scene lost in thought. If she were still alive, she would surely be very cute too. End of the full text.